Good afternoon, good evening. This is the Professor. Welcome to my channel, The Professor Truth Be Told on YouTube. This channel is dedicated to bring you information that you certainly can use. So today I am going to go over this lawsuit in detail with you, and we're going to talk about what could possibly happen. And certainly if you have not subscribed to my channel, I want you to subscribe for certainly three good reasons. One, once you subscribe, you'll be able to find out once I drop a video, you will get notified of this video. Also, I am in discussions with the lead attorney in this case, in the case of Mullins versus Novatech, to do a live event on YouTube so that the investors who are now possibly members of the class would have an opportunity to ask questions, and some of details would be, in terms of the lawsuits, will be available to them. So it is the best time for you to subscribe, because things are gonna get very, very interesting, and I don't want you to miss anything. You don't want to miss anything at all. You really want to be really part of this. You want to basically be informed of what's going on, and whether you invested $5,000, $1,000, $100,000, you want to know what's going to happen. This is a very interesting case. Now, let's, I've got a couple of things I want to talk to you about today, and I don't want to make the video long because I know that most of us don't like long videos. So I'm going to try to pack everything into 20 minutes or less. First of all, let's look at the lawsuit. The lawsuit is a class action. What does it mean? It means that there are a lot of people who suffer the same damages, and that litigating the case, this case, case by case, it wouldn't make sense at all, because you've got over 1 million people that have invested in what they believe to be a legitimate investment vehicle that lost money, and all of them were told the same thing. The damage was basically the same thing, and the fraud was basically the same thing. So that is the reason why this lawyer brought this case as a class action. Now, certainly, if you are an investor of Novatech and you're not one of the people they're suing, then you will be part of that class action. Of course, when I have my interview with the lawyers, if we can agree on everything, then you all will know how this will be unfolding. Now, in terms of the lawsuit, this lawsuit was filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Now, for those of you who do not live in the United States or don't live in New York, the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of New York, and I used to practice in that court actually, and the judge assigned to this case is a very interesting judge who has a lot of experience dealing with that type of racketeering patterns of criminal activities. And this judge was a former prosecutor who understands these issues very well. So let's take a look, really. This case, it's about 55 pages. I'm surprised that it's not longer than 55 pages. But certainly Novatech is the leading defendant here, followed by Cynthia and Eddy Petion, her husband, and the rest of it. And of course, of all the companies, Novatech Ltd, Novatech Advisors, NovaPay, which is quite interesting. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and Nova Trading. Now, there are certainly some individuals who for whatever reason, were very instrumental in making Novatech a successful Ponzi scheme by basically, recruiting people. Every weekend, every week, they were all over the internet, all over social media, recruiting people. And those people, as you see here, there is Dr. Martin Jean Zizi, there is Paul G. DiRenzo, Bob St. Louis, certainly individual defendants, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more than those people. We also have James Corbett. I don't think it's Gobbett. I think it's Corbett, who basically were also people who spent tremendous time really recruiting people. So, in terms of looking at this lawsuit described what Novatech did and how they targeted people who knew very little about cryptocurrency, and they talk about also all the different violations. For example, the complaint basically is for fraud, civil conspiracy to commit fraud, violations of the Federal Racketeer Influence and Co-op Organization Act. It's a federal act, and we call RICO, and of course, civil violation of New York Racketeering Influence Organization Act under Article 460. So that's kind of like the basis somewhat of the lawsuit. And the nature of the action is very clear. The lawyer described what Cynthia Petion and all of the people who were being sued did. Basically, the description here is that they told people, which is true because I have evidence of what the attorneys are saying. They said in the complaint that Cynthia Petion, her husband, and all the co-conspirators were going around the world telling people that Novatech was a licensed hedge fund company. And also they were telling people that the company has a license from the SEC, the securities organization in New York that actually licensed people to sell securities. Now, I have heard some guy said that crypto is not securities. The lawsuit says nothing about crypto being securities. The lawsuit says that they lied about being licensed by the Securities Commission so that they could take people's money. That's the securities fraud. When you said you have a license, you don't have, that's a fraud. In fact, the lawyer isn't really saying it. This is something that the state of California, the state of Wisconsin, the state of Washington, and of course the country of Canada, they all have said that the Petion and their co-conspirators have been lying to people. And that's the reason why they issued the cease and desist letter, because they wanted people to know that this was a fraud. Now, that's basically the nature of the organization, of the case. And then, of course, if you go further into jurisdictions and venues, they talk about why this court has jurisdictions. Obviously, they're suing for $2 billion. This is a lot of money. I see a lot of people is going to go bankrupt because these lawyers are ready to go after after all of these people. And if I was a promoter of Novatech right now, I would be really, really, really concerned about my future, the future of my family, because the defendants who promoted this Ponzi scheme know that they've got something coming. And guys, listen, if you're out there and you're looking for a way to make money, promoting Ponzi scheme is not the way to go, because this is the same law firm who are suing the MNEFX people with the Adventist Church. It's the same law firm. So they have experience. They know what they're doing. They're going to come after you and they're going to slam you hard. And they have a willing federal court, basically willing to listen, because the federal court in New York, they're aware what's going on. And this is probably one of the first cases where a Ponzi scheme is being sued in New York. The other lawsuit with regard to MNEFX is in Miami in front of a different judge. But this case is in New York. So basically, that's the jurisdiction. Then we'll talk about the parties, the people that are involved. The plaintiff is, I believe, a young lady who reside in Brooklyn, and her husband and some of it's a group of investors from FX that hired this law firm to go after Cynthia Petion. And of course, that describe all the defendant and everything that they did. Now, if you go to paragraph 22 of the complaint, he says what each individual defendant did. And this is where things going to get very dicey. It says that the defendant participating in the management of Novatech and was involved in the day-to-day operation of the company. So suddenly, these are allegations. I'm sure that the lawyer may have some evidence of that, but they're saying that those defendants was privy of confidential proprietary information concerning the company, that they were directly or indirectly involved in drafting, producing, reviewing, disseminating false and misleading information that is alleged in the complaint. So let's talk about this misleading information. I have seen at least 3 separate Zoom video recording where people were saying those lies. Now, the question is, did they know that they were lying? Well, if they didn't know, they should have known, because I looked everywhere, okay? Novatech never had a license to sell securities, okay? Now, I've heard some people on the internet talking nonsense. They have no idea what they're talking about. Novatech has been lying. Cynthia Petion, Eddy Petion, the co-conspirators had been lying to people about what license, if any, that they had to sell the packages that they were selling. So I think that the complaint covers that each of these defendants were certainly participating, involved in the, in this fraud. And of course, it goes over substantive allegation, the background of the companies, and how long they've been in existence, and what type of things they were doing. Now, this is the paragraph that I like. It said Novatech claimed to execute trading activity using its percentage allocation management module, which is PAMM account. According to Novatech investors who could invest their fund in Novatech master trading account, which Novatech will then pool with other investors' fund to be managed and traded by Novatech experienced traders. Now, let me ask you this question, Guy. Have you ever talked to anyone at Novatech who said that they work for Novatech and that this person is an experienced trader, that this person know what they're doing? Have you ever seen anything at all that shows that Cynthia Petion was buying cryptocurrency and then selling them for more than she bought it and pay you your interest? There was never any trading that was done inside Novatech. In fact, let me tell you what really happened. Cynthia Petion and Eddy Petion set up a whole bunch of company. Novatech FX, Novatech.com was an LTD in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Then they made a deal with a company from Ukraine, which actually involved an organized crime. And through their company, NovaPay, they were taking people's money. And then NovaPay, through that company, they were dealing with this Ukrainian company that allowed them to allow people to get paid. So in other words, the Ukrainian get a big percentage of your money. Then Cynthia and her husband and some of the people on top get some of that money. And the rest of it were being used to basically pay people who needed the 3% so that they encouraged them to actually get more people. Because here's the question, Guy. If Novatech was a legitimate company that were really trading, buying crypto and selling crypto, number one, they would have never in a million years guaranteed you 3% a week. That's number one. Number two, everyone would have a separate account. You would have been able to see exactly how much of your money by what percentage of crypto, and when does that interest return, and how much of that your account, accumulated your account get. So basically a whole bunch of you were just putting money in this big hole, and you have no way to account for this money. So it would be interesting to see how the Petion would certainly explain that. So let's look a little bit more about the complaint. The complaint goes on to talk about violation of the anti-fraud provision of Washington state security laws, which is basically a law in Washington state that says if you are selling any type of investment packages. Now, forget about cryptocurrency being, some people said, well, it's not securities. Forget about that. That's not what this is about. We're talking about people lying, okay? So that's on page 14. They talk about that. And it goes on to talk about violation of Wisconsin uniform security laws. And there were specific people actually who contacted people in Wisconsin. So this is serious allegation. It goes on to California, violation of California anti-fraud securities laws. Again, this is the same thing. Guys, let me explain this. Let me see if I can make sense of that for you. If you want to be a hedge fund, you want to take people's money and manage their money. I don't care what you're going to invest the money in. I don't care if you're going to buy widgets, if you're going to buy crypto. I don't care. The law says that you have to have a license in order to do that. Now, Novatech, Cynthia Petion, Eddy Petion, none of these people have any license at all. But yet they were going around for the better part of 3.5 to 4 years telling people that they do have a license. And I think this is where the state of California, Wisconsin, Washington, and the country of Canada certainly has a huge problem with the Petion. In fact, the state of Washington fined the Petion $200,000. The state of Wisconsin basically did the same thing to the tune of $150 million. Now, on page 20 of the complaint, it described the nature of the Novatech Ponzi scheme. This is very important, and it shows somebody on top, second level, third level, and now you can figure out who makes money. And the guy on top is the one who makes the money, and he talks about all the false material misrepresentation regarding the Novatech Enterprise Ponzi scheme. So this is a very detailed complaint. It goes on to talk about a specific allegation against each defendant, Dr. Jean-Martin Zizi, Bob St. Louis, and Fran Cicero. It goes on to explain what they did, how they were involved in this racketeering Ponzi scheme situation. So it's a very, very detailed complaint. And of course, there is on page 26, it talks about the plaintiff class allegations. In other words, it's basically explaining to the court why should this case be a class action lawsuit as opposed to a single individual lawsuit. And I bet you this is what the Patreon bet on. They didn't think that a group of people will come together and bring a class action lawsuit, because it would be hard to kind of get everybody on the same page, at least get each person to bring a separate cause of action. And then it goes to the different count, just like an indictment. It's going to count 1 all the way to count 17. So, guys, it's very detailed. I'm sure there's going to be an amended complaint. I'm sure, guys, there's going to be more detail coming out, because when I spoke to the law firm and told them that, hey, listen, guys, I'd like to get some more information about what you've been doing. And certainly this is kind of the running shot. It's kind of saying, hey, I'm coming for you. And I think this is a great attempt and letting the patient know that, hey, the law firms are coming for you. And I think that makes sense, because the patient basically, they deleted their website. So MiniFX is nowhere online. Everybody's running for the hills, because a lot of the people knew that they were doing wrong. And that's the reason that they're doing that. So as I promised you guys, I said that this is going to be 20 minutes or less. I certainly don't want to go in detail over the entire 50 pages. It would have taken me an hour to do this. But I promise you that first week of March, we will have the law firm of Morris Legal and their lawyers in my show live, talking about the lawsuit, talking about their plan, what they're trying to do, and how they're going to do it. And if you are an investor, you want to be part of that show. You want to listen. You want to be able to ask questions. But what I'm doing, guys, I'm only going to allow people who subscribe to my channel. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you have to subscribe now. That's the only way you're gonna be able to see that show, to speak to the to city attorneys and be able to ask questions. That's the only way you're gonna do it. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because I'm giving you guys a good 3 weeks, I think, before we have the show. I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about it, advertise it a little bit more so people will know about it. So if you are one of my subscribers, then don't worry about it. You would certainly get this. If you're not my subscribers, you want to become a subscriber before March 10. So that way, once I have the show, you would be able to participate. You would be able to listen. So I promise you 20 minutes. I'm a little bit over by 30 seconds. I do want to stop here. And last word that I'm going to say to people who are listening: if you are a promoter, of Novatech, okay, or if you've been promoting Ponzi scheme in the past, please stop, because the lawyers they understand this. They understand the new technology, in regard to crypto, and they know there are a lot of people there who are going to try to take advantage of others who may not have as much information. So the court, the FBI, everybody's on top of this. They know what it is. Please stop, because all you're going to do is destroy your life and those of your family. So this is free advice. Do not promote something you don't understand. I don't care if your mother or your father told you about it, unless you understand it, unless you're satisfied with all your questions. Do not promote Ponzi scheme, because I know people say, oh, we're going to get you 3%, 5%, and you're looking at how much money you can make, or somebody comes to you and say, oh yeah, I invested $100,000. Look at all this money that I've made. But that's the tricks. That's how they do it. They get some people some money so that people can go around and tell you how much they make. And then once you come in and you lose your money, I mean, it's just the way that fraud usually works, is to get somebody, especially somebody you trust, to say, hey, I make a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money too. And then once you lose your money, none of the people that actually talk you into joining is actually there. So, all right, guys, thank you so very much for listening, and hopefully the graphic didn't throw you off a little bit. So I'm happy that you've had some chance to listen to the show. And please subscribe, and that way you wouldn't miss anything. Okay? So, thank you so much.